That's Angry Hill. Those guys are out of Boston, Massachusetts. They are one of the more recent artists to join our family of independent artists on IndieTunes Records at IndieTunes.com. You can go over there, slide over there, and check us out on our website. Check us out on all of our socials. And if you didn't catch the beginning of this, we played the track in its entirety, so you might want to go back and listen to the track. It's broadcast in true stereo, so you could enjoy it there before it's released. It's coming out. That's right. That song is coming out very, very soon. It's slated to be released in upcoming days. It is uploaded to 160 different internet stores and streaming services, and it will go live on August the 23rd. So you can get there over there and you can grab the pre-sale of that song. Pull Yourself Together. That's a title track off their album, which is a waterfall release. We got about 10 tracks to put out there. I think we're 3 tracks in and 7 more to go. So follow it. Angry Hill, check them out on all your favorite streaming services, whatever you happen to use. Go over there and check them out. Angry Hill from Boston, Massachusetts. You want to check that out for sure. Well, we got a great show for you tonight. It's going to be a cooker. It was a hot day today here. It was well over 100 degrees today. I went out for a motorcycle ride, and man, the heat coming off the pavement was like 140 degrees today. So it was a swelter, and of course, the humidity doesn't help either. All right, well, without further ado, I've got my co-host with the most from the East Coast, Sean McKenna from the podcast Barstools and Bandtalk, Rimshots with Sean. There he is.
Hi.
Heidi ho.
How's she going?
What do you know, brother?
We got Anthony Roberts listening from the Boogie Down Melrose area. Good to see you. And David Vera, how do you pronounce David's last name? Vercali? Killer Sound.
Veracali or Veracali?
Veracali, yeah.
That's Dave. That he is with Trick Shot. They're from Australia. They're on the label as well.
I've been talking
it's always
to
great
Dave
when our artists on the label. It's always great when the artists on the label join the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he says, "Hey, Ken and Sean McKenna."
Howdy ho.
Howdy ho. We were talking about Spotify just before the show, and there's no secret that you are not a big fan of Spotify.
I removed the app from my phone.
And you don't hide that fact, and that's okay.
Well, but here's the thing: I don't go if you use it, you're dumb or whatever. It's nothing like that. It's just if if you say it but you don't, if you walk the walk or talk the talk but you don't walk the walk. So I just removed it from my phone. And I tell people, if they're going to send me stuff on YouTube or some other way or an MP3 or whatever. I'll gladly listen to it, plug it, promote it, and I'll put Spotify links up there, but I'm not part of it.
Yeah, and if you like what you're hearing, Sean, don't be afraid to send them my way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's an interesting thing that I was sharing with you before the show. We've got these streams that are racking up and racking up and racking up. We've had, and I'm going to be very transparent about this tonight. We've had to date 3 artists who have had their music pulled off Spotify for fraudulent streams. Right. So here's the skinny on that. How do you know they're fraudulent streams if they don't share with you where they found them from?
Yeah. I don't even know where to start on this because it's really, again, so the argument is you're going to spend $100, $200 to make 25 cents. Right? So it's like, okay, if that's the case, who cares? And the more and more you get into the streaming services, the more and more you have to admit that, and it's great when people post that they're being added to playlists. That's fantastic, but it's not weighted for the independent artist. It's weighted for the major label artist each and every time. Period.
It's what's really interesting about this is that the first artist that this happened to, that's associated with our label, they had a 5-song EP out, and that 5-song EP had close to 100,000 streams on it.
Yep.
Right. And as soon as it started peaking, Spotify shut it down and said, "Oh, you got fraudulent streams on there." Blah 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 blah. So
we don't want to cut you a check for 13 cents, so we're going to take it down.
Right. So what do you think the first thing that I did was? What do you think I did?
Well, I would probably say contact Spotify to figure out what was up.
Yeah, I would contact Spotify. I contacted my aggregator to find out what was up. They can't even tell you the IP addresses that are supposedly fraudulent. Now, in today's day and age, I'm sure that Spotify has the ability to be able to track IP addresses.
I mean, likely. But if you, the stat that you use, what did you say way back when? There's 70,000 new tunes added.
Yeah, there's 70,000 new tracks added every day on Spotify alone.
So, unless it's one of those IP sniffer sort of software pieces of technology, you still have to have people that are monitoring it and manning it. So, it's an overhead cost of labor, I would think, that they're not willing to take on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're using some kind of artificial intelligence bot farms or whatever to track, to find out if something looks like it's fraudulent. And they maybe I'm sure that because they are using IT, which I mean, I think about artificial AI as artificial intelligence is one of those things that it is only as good as what it's told or what it's learning from the human.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you have to input data to get something out, right?
So what if somebody decided to put something in the algorithm that says that any independent artist who reaches X number of streams automatically gets their music yanked from Spotify? Who's to stop somebody from putting that algorithm in there?
No one. I mean, based upon the quality control that I've seen, no one. And and the term fraudulent to me is kind of funny, in that, and I won't get too into it, but it's like, if you look at how they pay, you could kind of make the same argument, right?
Well, here's the interesting thing. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to do this, because I actually got some screenshots.
Okay.
Right. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read them to you, because I don't want to show them, because they have confidential information on there about the artist. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it says, I got to make sure I get the first one here. Where the hell is it? Oh man. I don't know if I got it right here now. Let me see.
Well, while you're looking, I told you about Vernon Reid from Living Color, the guitar player from Living Color. So he was on Classic Guitar something. Sorry, I'm not 100% sure of the website. But basically, somebody tagged him on a link to a release that was on Spotify. And Vernon Reid said, "Congratulations, but it's getting to the point now where they're going to replace humans and musicians. And if the public thinks that it sounds okay, they'll be fine with it because they don't say anything." It's quite a statement from a guy that spent his entire career in the music business, almost throwing his arms in the air with some of this stuff.
Yeah. So here's the first thing that comes up. So this is the first message I get when I log on to my DistroKid, my label account. Okay.
Yeah.
It says, "Stop using promo services. Chances are you paid an outside Spotify promotion service, or paid for streams, or paid for playlist placement, or paid for ad placement service."
Okay.
You probably didn't know it. Wait a minute. You probably didn't know it, but these services use bots to generate fake streams, even if they claim natural and organic listeners.
Okay. So right there out of the gate, if you're not on Spotify Premium, you get to hear one song and then you get 8 stinking commercials before you get to the next one.
Right.
So pot, kettle, the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. So my first response to that one was, we never used streaming services. We never use any kind of outside promotional services. We don't even use the Spotify recommended ones.
Right.
Right? Everything we do is 100% natural and organic. It's all organic reach. And we have artists who are tracking really, really well. That Angry Hill, their first single that came out, the one that Keith duets with Lorraine Lewis on.
Yep.
Right? It's an interesting tune, and it was their first release on our label. And I'm just going to pull it up here. It was released just a while back. It was released on June 28th, so right on the cusp of July.
Mm-hmm.
It's been out about a month, and it's picked up about 50,000 organic streams.
Nice.
And here's the interesting thing about that is that most of them are unique streams, right? Which means they've come from different IP addresses, even though Spotify isn't able to identify, but they can actually identify by country where those streams are coming from.
Well, I mean, I'm going to throw something out here, and I've never said it before, and I'm going to qualify it by saying I have absolutely no proof. It's 100% my opinion. But what's to say if you're a service, and I'm not picking on any service, but if you're a service that's set up to basically promote and be beholden to the majors, what's not to say that the majors get in your ear every now and again and say, hey, randomly pick 300 or 400 independent artists that have some big streams and flag them because we don't think that we want them to do that.
Well, in camera, I'm gonna tell you something here.
In camera. We're in Halifax City. I had a conversation about that today. I've been interviewing mayoral candidates here in Halifax, and I brought up the in-camera thing. It's like, okay, anyway, yeah.
Anyways, there is a clause in here that I believe leaves a window open for independent artists to file a class action suit against Spotify.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and I would be willing to see if we could get a legal firm in the U.S. to take on our case.
Okay.
Pro bono, right? And they would take a portion of the proceeds. I wouldn't really even care if we got a huge cash settlement out of this, other than the fact that it became public that Spotify is actually through their monitoring service here for monitoring fraudulent streams is actually not following the rule of law.
Is that U.S. law or Canadian law or international law?
I'm talking U.S. law.
Okay.
So they're a U.S. company, right?
Yep.
Now, they're also an international company. So, there's a lot of reach here in terms of who could get in on the class action suit.
Yep.
Right? But there's some stuff that they've done where they've violated, I believe, and I'll share that with you off camera. And if anybody's interested in joining me off camera at some point, we can set up a group chat and open this up to a whole bunch of people, because there's a couple of clauses in there. I'm not going to read them.
Yep.
Because I don't want to tip anybody off here, but there's a couple of, as I read them, they look like they violate the rule of law.
Interesting.
Especially when it comes to withholding proper payment for services.
I'd be interested. And as a matter of fact, with probably one or two posts, I could find a lawyer that might be interested in taking that.
Well, here's another interesting thing. They assume you're guilty. Okay? Now, in the U.S., you are innocent until proven guilty.
Oh, yeah.
But Spotify is making the assumption that you're already guilty. Here's one of the statements they make. I know all Spotify promo services are scams and I won't use them in the future. I've never used them. Why would I agree to that?
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm locked out of my publishing account until I agree to that.
That's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because I never did it. And there is no vehicle within this whole Spotify BS with all of the aggregate services. And this is it's DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, all of them are affected by this.
Yep.
Right? Any publishing service other than the publishing services used by major record labels. Okay, so now there's a two-tiered system here.
Yep.
Right? If you're with a major record label, this is your tier. You have the highest tier.
Yep.
Now, what most popular pop artist out there is leading everybody on all digital services. Don't say her name, but you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we know someone's out there leading the pack, and they led the pack so much that they decided to come back to Spotify.
Yep.
Because there's a honey of a deal there. I can guarantee you that Spotify said, "Oh, please come back to us. We'll pay you better. We'll negotiate a separate contract for you above everybody else."
Here's the thing for me. I never begrudge anybody making money, honestly and legally and whatever. I that's just in order to be an entity, you have to be successful in commerce, right? Where I kind of have a problem with it is when people complain about people making money, but then they still support the people that are making the money.
But so here's the thing: is Spotify trying to act like a record label?
I've kind of thought that for quite a while.
So if they've got the big three major record labels. They've got Universal, right? They got Warner, and they've got Sony Entertainment.
So look at this. I've got a friend. And I'm gonna basically connect that dot. I've got a friend who's always said, in particular in Nova Scotia, a new premier gets in, he's going to change the world, and for a short period of time he does, and then he pisses off the people that have been funding him and the special interests, and the next thing you know, he totally changes what he said he's going to do, and he goes back to what the other guy did.
Well,
and I think that's what's happening.
Well, here, the other thing, are they really trying to discourage people from self-publishing? Because it's the people that are self-publishing themselves that have to do all this work to get their music back up on the streaming services.
Well,
if it gets yanked, and the whole thing is, and Anthony asked this question. Thanks for the question, Anthony. How can one legally promote their songs without facing dilemma with Spotify, etc.? Well, there is no magic bullet, but what you need is somebody advocating for you. That's what we do as an independent record label. We advocate on behalf of our artists to the point where we're interested in helping our artists and maybe those beyond to file a class action suit against Spotify.
Here's the asterisk, and I'll say this, and I always say this: send your cards and letters to the thing on the right if you're upset. But the simple fact of the matter is this: a lot of people get mad about it. Very few people choose to do anything about it, right? So, they complain about the service and they complain about how it's run, but then they still say, "Hey, I get added to 5,700 playlists and look at me and la la la." So it's like, and because they think they're going to be disadvantaged because they're not there. Well, okay, here's what I'll say, and I know you like the analytics on that particular platform.
Sure, of course,
right. But I can make 0 or I can make 13 cents doing a lot of work. What would I rather do? Probably. They're both the same, so I'll do it other ways. That's my personal thing. Therefore, when somebody complains about it, I feel like I can say, well, hey, this is what I did. I'm no superhero, but I can complain about it because I don't like what they're doing. And that's just my opinion.
I'm going to share a screen with you right now.
Yep.
There it is. Can you see that up there?
Yeah.
Let me let me enlarge that one. Let me see if we can put there. There it is, right there.
Yeah.
So this is our record label on Twitter X, and it's interesting. You can see that we have the blue check mark there beside our name.
Yeah.
And we're trending across Twitter X, which is really, really great. We're interacting with a whole lot of people in the music industry. I just kind of revamped this thing and started all over again. So we've got 1,068 followers on Twitter X, and we get questions all the time from people. And what it says up there is very simply what we are: independent record label, grassroots music activist and advocate. Independent music is not an industry, it is an independent music networking community.
Amen.
Right? That's really what it should be.
Yep.
It's not what it's become, because you and I've talked about this, how it's every man or every woman or every person for themselves.
And it's unfortunate. Somebody had brought something to my attention today about having about something that was said about me, which kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because it's like, you're clearly missing the point of what I'm about, but that's fine if you think that way. And basically, it was a little something like this: I'm a know-it-all, and I think that I know everything, in my opinion. And it's like, here's the deal. The deal is this: I've got a great network of people that are very willing to give up information. And so when somebody asks me something, it's not my opinion. I go out to the people that actually are doing stuff and bring back what they say. But that gets conceived as me being a know-it-all. Well, here's the part two. Once you prove to me that you're not going to impact my network in any negative way, then I'm happy to open it up bigger. But for now, you have to deal with the gatekeeper. So that was kind of my answer, right? And the problem is that in order to actually truly be what you're talking about being, you got to have a few people that are going to come together and work together, and that just doesn't happen, unfortunately.
Right. I want to thank Anthony Roberts for joining us. He's from the Bronx, New York, Melrose area, so it's really kind of cool to have him. He had a couple of really, really great questions.
He's a power user today.
He says, what about creating your own 15, 30, and 60-second commercial spots about your single natural promo stream that is organic by right? Yeah, there's a whole lot of ways you can direct social media traffic to your music, wherever it lives. And I think it's always really important that, rather than show any bias that we have about any particular streaming service, because they're all not very good at remunerating artists nor treating artists appropriately in terms of the way that they gather analytics and the way that they treat, independent artists. It's not a good system.
It's not. And, again, a lot of people, don't deep dive like you do, right? I mean, I'll use another example. I had a conversation with 4 people yesterday about sponsored ads on social media. And I basically said, well, here's, in my opinion, based upon a bunch of seminars that I took, why sponsored ads are not effective. And you would better, spend your money elsewhere. And then today,
hey, here you go, right here. You can
right?
You can take that money you're going to spend on advertising, on sponsored ads, and put it in our tip jar.
Yeah, but what these 4 people did today when I went on my feed was they all took sponsored ads. So
scan that QR code. You can give us $1. You can give us $2, whatever you want. It helps the cause and moves our cause forward. And that's the only time I ever solicit money from anybody. You're frozen again.
No, I'm not.
Well, not on your end, but on this end you are. So there must be an internet lag thing going on.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
The joys of live.
Your audio is always impeccable. So, well, sometimes you'll look a bit like Max Headroom.
It's right in here, bud.
Move close to the camera for a second and let the camera focus on you. See what happens.
My head gets bigger.
There you go.
And we don't need that.
We don't need no egos going on there, right?
No, that's right.
Um, so what I find really, really interesting in all of this is that there's a whole bunch of things that they automatically make assumptions about when they pull these, when they decide that they're going to pull these, right?
Yep.
It's really, really weird because it said, and here's another one. This is another one. I understand that the use of these services could lead to withheld royalties, fines, and or permanent ban.
How about I just make it easy for you and not participate in your platform? I mean,
Well, here's my protest right now. My protest is I go through all these motions. I send them all kinds of appeals about the stupid decision that they've made, right? And then I republish the music because my aggregator tells me it's okay to do so again.
yeah. So I think personally it's a bit of a shakedown to intimidate. My personal opinion. That's just again my personal opinion. That's no evidence I have. I will qualify it by
No,
saying
I think
that.
it's a shakedown. I think you're right. I think there's a shakedown going on to this whole thing.
Well, and
They
I
make
don't
all
want
these
the
weird. They make.
like
Go ahead.
I don't want the little bald fella coming after me, but and threatening to sue me. But it's just I choose to not participate because it's some of these rules. Because again, um, it's just an awful lot of work for very little upside, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, a little transparency to me goes a long way. If you're not transparent, it must mean you've got something to hide from the general public, right? Uh, and again, I'm not making any bald-faced accusations. These are somewhat assumptions based on some of the reading that you get. So here's another thing that they put in here. And remember, I can't log into my aggregator until I go through this. It's the same lesson they put you through when you get a copyright strike on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? And everybody says, almost everybody that's a YouTuber that's done well on YouTube has had at least one copyright strike in their career.
I've had 3.
Yeah, so there you go, right? And so somebody forgot to do the licensing or whatever, and then somebody puts a copyright claim in against your content.
But isn't this interesting? If you go on TikTok and try to do it, they don't even let you load the video because it does a scan when you're loading the video. And here's how I know this, because I tried to load one the other day that was a song that I had something to do with, and because I had one wrong thing in the comments, it basically said I couldn't load it and I had to change it. So,
well, here's an interesting thing. So certain services that artists have published their music with are going to lose their licensing with TikTok soon.
okay, is that because of the U.S.?
Well, the thing is, here it is, independent artists. This is why you need to work with an independent record label who does all this research that you have absolutely no fucking time to do.
Ouch.
And there's a lot of research in there. And what's going to happen literally is that if your music is not properly licensed for the smaller, these what I call Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, right? If you have not set up the licensing for your music appropriately, you will lose, your music will be pulled down off those services.
And as one who is a guerrilla social media marketer, let me tell you, it is very cool when you go and you post a song by somebody that you're pushing and it's up there and you don't have to do it. It's there because the work was done and you just click it and boom, it goes out there and there's no nonsense or whatever. It's game changer.
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting thing that can happen periodically as well. And a lot of people don't realize this. And it doesn't matter whether you're using a white label publishing service. The major record labels have their own publishing services and can publish directly to these streaming services. Others like CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, all of those. Ditto, I think, is another one that's come on board. And all of those publish to several different download and streaming services, and some have deals with more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But here's the thing. When you publish music globally, it's like a massive spread shotgun. It's like shooting off a sawed-off shotgun. The spread pattern is huge, right?
Yep.
And simultaneously, your music somehow magically goes over the internet to 160 different internet download and streaming services. Right?
That's amazing.
That's a lot of freaking buckshot, dude.
Yep.
So is it possible that because we're dealing with a digital world over the internet, things are traveling by fiber optic cable and or coaxial cable, or in some cases copper, right? Is it possible that periodically one of those streaming services could miss your music?
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's another thing that I found out in global publishing as well. Most global publishing aggregators do not have access to Canada's iHeartRadio.
Interesting.
So they can publish to the American version of iHeart, but they cannot publish to the Canadian version, which puts you up alongside Chum FM and all those others.
So iHeart though is like it's like dealing with it's like Mr. Snuffleupagus on Sesame Street. Like you hear about him, but you've never seen him, because I happen to know an awful lot of people that work in Canadian radio, and it's the classic. You get a contact, it leads you another contact, it leads you another contact, and you hit a brick wall.
What was the bill that was passed about Canadian content?
Well, that was the CanCon thing where they basically have to have, I think it's 70% of everything in the run of an hour has to be Canadian.
Right. So here's an interesting thing. iHeartRadio Canada is a Canadian platform,
Yep.
right? And the interesting thing is that these aggregators are American.
Yeah.
Is it possible that that content is blocked because of that bill?
I don't know. I mean, try to load a news story on Facebook and see what happens. I mean, it's possible, right? It's I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the bill that was passed in the House of Commons regarding the Canadian content thing, right?
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, again, this is my humble opinion, so take it as that, and don't let anybody get over the top me. But anytime government gets involved in the arts, it's a colossal disaster.
You mean that the government just turns things into dog shit?
Well, I mean everything from grants. Okay, I mean that could be another entire show.
Hey, see my shirt?
Yeah, right on.
All I care about is my dog and maybe 3 other people.
Well, there you go. But I mean, back to what we were talking about, Ken. The grant system could be an entire episode, because that is such a joke. I'm sorry.
This whole episode is brought to you by Bits Mints.
Oh man, we're trying to have an upscale conversation, and but you watch, this will go viral, because my end is brought to you by Bob Ross. So,
yeah, well, okay. How about this one? Santa's coming.
You're gonna make me show my underwear. Back to what I was saying, though. So I can be the voice of reason. Anytime the government gets involved in anything, it becomes a disaster, right? Because it's always pitched to help, and it rarely helps. It's always some, there's some group that's lobbying to have something done some way, and so the CanCon thing, I think is decent. I mean, because back in the day, it was Canadian artists would have a hard time getting played on Canadian radio.
I really think I'm going to be completely honest here, right?
Yeah.
I really honestly think. Let me see if I can get us to enlarge a little bit more. Hang on a second. There we go. All right. Um, yeah. So here's an interesting thing: is that I think that when we look at these services and what they're doing, and especially this current one that we're talking about here, because it seems to be, the thorn in everybody's flesh right now, is that they make a lot of assumptions about what you're doing if they decide that your streams are fraudulent, right? And then, you know, then here's another one. Okay, so yeah, in order to log in, I have to go through another one here. It says to continue, confirm. I know all Spotify promo services are a scam and I won't use them in the future. I never used them in the past. Why would I say I'm not going to use them in the future?
Yeah, I don't
Right?
know.
I understand that these services could lead to withheld royalties, fines, and a permanent ban. Well, you know what? If I got permanently banned from Spotify, it wouldn't be the end of the world. We'd really put a push on iTunes and Apple Music.
Yeah, take back my 13 cents. You're gonna tremendously harm me.
Well, we would just push over to other services, and we would recommend that our followers move over to iTunes and Apple, because that's where our artist music is going to live if this continues to happen, right? I mean, we've got other ways. We have ways of
Yep.
making you talk,
Yep. I mean, when I went on my, and geez, when was it? It was about 3 months ago, I'm going to say. But when I went on my, no to Spotify thing, um, I didn't, I didn't, tell everybody follow me. I had had enough, and to me, the only way that I'm going to prove that legit is if I do what I say and I don't follow it. Anybody sends me anything on Spotify, I'm very quick to tell them I can't open it because I don't have the app. I just don't support it. I'm not saying to anybody else don't do that. That's a choice. But I'm saying that
right?
history shows that things do not change by saying you want to do something and then nobody does it.
That's right. Thanks for joining us tonight, Terry Marsh. Terry Marsh is with Boiler Beach, and he's got to go promote a gig. There you go, working musician.
Good.
Anthony has another question. He says, "Hey, what about radio station music license that is required by online internet stations? Facebook will mute the audio if a station doesn't have the license to live stream a show featuring music songs by copyright songs."
The whole so that's again. I'm loving Anthony's given us enough content for about 10 more episodes here, right? Because and I love it. Because if you look at the very effort to get your song to get basically paid in royalties. So SOCAN, for example, if you're going to play your songs live, you have to report that to SOCAN every time you do it, where the venue was, what songs you were. You got to send it in every time. So if you're playing, say, 10 shows a month, and you play 4 songs at the 10 shows, you got to every time that you did it and where they were, and you have to send it to them. And then 3 or 4 months later, you might get compensated for that. But the way they
Yeah,
collect it is they just go to a venue and they've got a spreadsheet, and they just basically say, based upon the data you're giving us, here's what you got to give us towards the artist. And it's on the one hand, they're expecting the musician to do all this work. On the other hand, there's not as much work being done. So it's just a very
right.
bizarre sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. As we put our artist music to radio, and this is I guess a question around the whole radio thing as well. And I'll answer some of those questions for you about. Not all internet radio stations are compliant.
No.
Number one, not all terrestrial radio stations are compliant. That's number two. Number three is that there are very, very few penalties out there for those that are non-compliant. And there really isn't an excuse to be non-compliant these days, because they base the licensing now based on what your annual income is for your station. If you're below a certain threshold, your license is a certain fee. And that covers no matter how many plays you do throughout the year, right?
Yep.
It's a minimal fee if you're under X number of dollars, and they think they go up every $10,000 or something like that, and it's a different licensing fee that you pay, but it's a blanket licensing fee. You still have to submit your playlists,
Yep.
and then they figure out who gets paid out the royalties on that. The cool thing about radio is that if you submit to a show, your song gets played once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times on the show. But if you submit your music to a radio station that puts your music on repeat airplay, which means now you're on the servers, your music is getting played 24/7, which means you could get upwards of 30 plays a month just off that radio station.
Yep.
Now, if you were to replicate that 100 times and get that out to a network of radio stations that would put your music on rotation, you might earn a nice little chunk of royalties.
You could, but I was also told by somebody that you and I both know very well, and somebody that I certainly respect, Mr. Michael Bramble. He said in the States right now, artists getting paid on radio is a dog's breakfast.
It's always been a dog's breakfast here in Canada as well. I mean, not like I said, not everybody's compliant. Internet radio, there's no part of the licensing where it forces you, that I'm aware of, to actually go and secure a license through Connect Music or SOCAN or through BMI or ASCAP. If you're US, you're going to look at BMI or ASCAP. If you're Canadian, you're going to look at SOCAN and Connect Music Canada. Those are places you can apply to get the licensing. We had a podcast who wanted to use one of our artists' music on his podcast. And I said, well, here's an interesting thing. You can apply for a license to use all of our artists' music on your podcast.
Yeah.
Because our artists are registered. The majority of them are registered with Connect Music Canada, which means that if you're getting airplay, they're collecting royalties on your behalf.
Yep.
It's really, this whole convoluted thing, I really don't like it. And of course, they make you go through this. It's kind of like that, copyright strike 101 for dummies.
Yeah. And again, it hasn't happened to me yet, so I'm not that concerned about it. And if you remember, the first time it happened to an indie tunes artist, I was quite livid, and it was an artist that really, other than being on the label, wasn't connected to me in any way, and I was quite pissed off about it. And started my little rant, and then it kind of landed on my doorstep a little bit. So again, and this is just all, for the Sean detractors, I have walked the walk, because this is just something that to me is not right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's different. I'm a publisher. I have to try and make sure our music lands in front of as many people as possible. That's my job. But it's also the way that if I'm going to make any remuneration doing this, I've got to expose the music to the largest market that I can.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, you're not going to get rich off digital music.
Nope.
If you got it in your head that you're going to get rich off your digital music, you better give yourself a reality check.
Not going to happen.
Unless you're with a major record label, it's not going to happen. If you're with a major record label and you've got, and here's the other thing. There's a huge correlation, and I've told everybody this before, okay? These people that are making the millions of dollars on Spotify, and they're making millions of dollars off iTunes and Apple Music as well, they're making that kind of money because they have that many millions of followers who are engaged with their music.
Yep.
Right? if you look at the social media following of the largest artists that are reporting the largest revenues off of streaming services, you'll see that some of them have 454 million followers.
And you'll also see if you put my name in there, I probably am not following them.
And those with those huge staggering numbers of followers are those that are packing out arena shows.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, here's an interesting thing. My daughter and my wife are going to see Def Leppard in Toronto.
Yep.
This Friday, taking them there this Friday. And here's an interesting thing. So after all these years, Def Leppard is still playing stadium tours. They're playing at the Rogers Center, and the show's predicted to be sold out.
Yep.
They're playing with Journey, so it'll be an interesting show. They saw them last year down in Ohio, in Cincinnati, I believe it was, and man, they put on a great show.
They do.
They actually upstaged Motley Crue, who was headlining that show.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
And then, of course, the one that blew my daughter away was Alice Cooper.
Well, I've Alice Cooper a bunch of times, and his band's always amazing. His show is always amazing. No surprise there.
Yeah, here's a guy who really understands his craft, eh?
Well, I mean, he's like, Gene Simmons would be the same way, right? Gene Simmons had this, he took it a little bit in the press a month or so ago, talking about prog rock and jazz and how, who wants to go see that, and I get what he was going for. He's always going for the sensational thing, but they know their shtick, man.
Here's an interesting thing. So Gene Simmons just quoted something one day ago. He's quoted as saying, he makes more money playing now. I literally make more money playing per gig being Gene Simmons and the Gene Simmons Band than I did on any gig with Kiss.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to split it with Paul, and he can pay the pits to the back. Like, is anybody surprised by that? Like, come on, Gene.
But it's really interesting, right? Because he's selling out these shows, and people are eating him up as the Gene Simmons Band.
And they're still my band. And you know what? If you go on and you listen to them, I mean, I think he just turned 74 or something. 02. And I mean, he still sings those songs with a growl. Like, he sounds great. He's got top-notch players in the band.
His voice actually sounds better now than it did back in the 70s.
Well, sure it does, because he figured out how to do what he's doing with technology and stuff now, and proper monitors and what have you. My boy Dean Boharnish, my boys Def Leppard, love them. Saw them in Halifax in 2019, row number 9 on the 4. Compliments of my local man Eddie Duggan, who, if you know Eddie wins everything. Lick it up. Go Gene. Deanbo. Love you, bud.
Thanks, Deanbo, for those comments. Very much appreciated. Love it when you join the show. So here's an interesting thing. This is the first thing that you get when you log on to your aggregator if Spotify has decided to pull your music for what they call fraudulent streams, okay? Spotify has detected that an overwhelmingly majority of the streams on the tracks below are artificial. As a result, your releases containing those tracks have been removed from their streaming service. For more information, please consult Spotify's guidelines.
Yeah, so here's what I picture. You're reading that, and I picture Game TV. On one hand, somebody spinning a wheel, and then the other hand, Rip Taylor's got the mallet with the gong and the happy face on it. Good Lord.
I mean, and here's the whole thing. Like I said, there's no appeals process to go through, right? You just have to claim that you're guilty. It's basically throw yourself on the mercy of the court. And what I think has happened here is I think the aggregators have basically done this to Spotify and said, you know what? We're not going to do your job for you.
Yeah.
We're going to let people republish the song. And if you decide to give us a pull down notice, We'll pull it down again, but we're going to let our people keep publishing it up on your service until you do your job right. I remember when this all happened, is it Phil Kaplan that is behind DistroKid?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Phil Kaplan. And so he started DistroKid, and I came on with DistroKid very early on in the game, like 2016, when they first really got going. And a buddy of mine in internet radio was the one that turned me on to them. And he said, I think DistroKid is the up and comer. They're better than a white label service because they're going to publish you in so many places, and they're going to give you tools, right? And they do. They give you some really, really interesting tools when you publish. One of those is that you can do a playlisting pitching campaign. And another one of those is that you can create canvases of your work.
Yep.
Right. So anytime someone wants to do a canvas, go on to Spotify canvases, because it's universal. It's used on a bunch of different services. Those that actually support it. And you can do a very short video. It has to be in portrait mode, and they give you very specific parameters to produce this video. And you can do it on a phone. It's that easy, right?
Yep.
And basically all it's got to be is you lip syncing some of the lyrics to the song, right? And then you can give it to us, or if you're self-publishing, you can post that canvas up there. And when people play your music on these streaming services, they'll see your GIF moving.
And it's a cool effect. It's a very cool add-on.
Yeah, it's an auto visual thing. Other things that we're doing this year is we're publishing music to Apple Music music videos, and to Vivo, as well as other services that are slowly opening up to this process where people can actually stream your video as part of their subscription service. So here's another way to get some hits on videos, but the videos can't contain a whole lot of stuff. They can't contain watermarks. They can't contain lower thirds. They can't even contain the name of the band or any graphics like that. But all they're looking for now, here's the interesting thing. For independent artists, that's what they want. The major record labels, on their Vivo videos, there's lower thirds, there's text, there's all kinds of shit. Right? Here's an interesting thing that I noticed about, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, about mainstream music videos. Have you ever counted the number of product placements in those videos?
I do that all the time.
Do you really?
Well, so the funny thing is, so you'll see it on Instagram, somebody, and there's a couple different versions of it. Like I do it, and I get asked to do it, where I'll do a product review, or somebody will ask me to represent. I don't have it here, but my Renegade Records, right? And then, but you'll have people that are paying artists, and they, then they become what's called an influencer. And
Right.
hey, I got these glasses, man, at the ABC store, and the ABC store is the best. And the idea is that all kinds of people go to the ABC store and buy glasses. So in videos, absolutely, product placement is huge.
Well, here's an interesting thing I want to say as we sort of close off towards the end of the night, is that licensing services or publishing services like DistroKid, for an artist, it's about $69 a year. I think it's gone up now. I'm not sure exactly what the charge is for an artist. I have a label version. Anthony, you might know that if you're using DistroKid. What's their annual fee? CD Baby charges per release, a one-time fee per release. TuneCore, I think, is a yearly reoccurring fee, as well as I think Ditto is a reoccurring yearly fee as well, for unlimited uploads of music.
Yeah.
We're different as a record label associated with a DistroKid. I pay several thousands of dollars, and I think right now we're currently licensed to manage 50 artists.
Yep.
That gives me unlimited publishing on those 50 artists as well. The cool thing about us doing it is that because we're a label service, we get a lot more horsepower and we get a lot more access to tools that artists don't have access to.
And you know what? People don't realize that. And I get the whole, sentiment of doing it yourself because I've heard people say don't pay somebody for something you can do yourself. But I know personally when you're repping an artist and you're trying to do radio and you're trying to learn songs and you're trying to do shows and you don't have the time to do it properly. I don't care who you are. And me as a not an incredibly organized person can appreciate it more than some. I just if you're asked to take part in an independent program and you don't, I just don't know why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I have access to tools that most people don't have access to.
Yep.
And the cool thing about that is it allows me some insights that other people don't have. Plus, as you know, I'm the one that I like to claim responsibility for this, turning you on to analytics.
Yeah, you claim responsibility for the good stuff, but not all the stuff that goes sideways. I get it.
What? Okay, tell me some bad stuff because I mean we got to take the good with the bad.
I was joking, and you know what? And straight up, I mean, I was never a numbers guy, and analytics to me were always in the form of when I worked in corporate sales, you'd have a CRM platform where somebody look at all your what you had in the funnel and. So some person that never sold anything in their life would tell you what a shitty job you were doing. And that to me was what analytics were until I started getting involved in them in a different way. And then it's like, it's amazing because you can start to guide things and you can start to put programs together and it's super interesting. I'm a believer, no question.
We started something here, I think it was a couple 3 weeks ago. And I just want to take a look, see if I can find it on here because people keep publishing stuff over and above it, and I should have anchored it. Oh yeah, here it is right here. Okay, so we started a poll right on AnyTunes Music Support. So if you haven't joined AnyTunes Music Support, go over to Facebook and join that group. We put a poll out there. Which of the following streaming services do you use to listen to music? And I posted this out to everyone. So there's 673 current members in the group right now. And then I shared out this on my profile. And I'm gonna actually pin this because it should be pinned to featured. Anyways, 10% of those polled said, but there weren't many votes. 10% said iTunes, Apple Music. 35% said Spotify. 35% said YouTube Music. Okay, so YouTube and Spotify are on our poll, are hand in hand. So someone added Amazon Music, 7%, and then 6% of the respondents said, I don't use streaming services. So people can actually add choices to this poll. That's a cool thing about this poll. So if you're using a streaming services other than the ones that are there, I'll see if I can post the link to the poll here, and hopefully we can get people to join the poll. But it's a really cool poll because it's going to give us maybe some insights, and more people that join the group and participate in the poll, the better the sample group, the better the sense we'll get in terms of what services people actually use. Mm-hmm. So that'd be kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, we're just ending the first period of overtime, and I think we just scratched the surface on this like we always do.
Yeah, we've been scratching the surface for about 8 weeks.
I know, and it's amazing how one of these just joins on to the next, right?
Well, I mean, the problem is that I think that you got to realize at some point it's the never-ending Pandora's box that I don't think you're ever gonna find a happy ending to, because there's too many variables to it. Are you looking at Deanbo's message there?
No, I'm looking at a message from Shane Sawyer from He Said, She Said.
Yeah.
So we're looking at having them on the show on the 14th of August.
Okay.
They're going to join us. They've got a re-release coming out. It's actually remastered audio of a tune that they did a while back, and I think it just didn't get the airplay that I think that it should have got. It's called Interlude. It's a great tune. It's really well produced, and they've now got an animated video to go with it.
That's very cool.
So we're going to premiere the animated video. It's kind of really neat because the animated video is actually caricatures of them.
Very cool.
Which is kind of cool. So it's kind of a neat video. And I looked after getting the remaster done and the encoding for the track. And then it was really interesting. So here is the last lesson we're going to give you tonight about encoding tracks. Okay. So what do you think one of the last checks that I did on these tracks were when I saw something that looked familiar in the the ISRC, which is the International Standard Recording Code?
I have no idea.
So it looked ghostly familiar. So I went back to their last release. It was the exact same ISRC that they had given me. Right?
Interesting.
And the only thing that actually had to change was the release number for the year. Right? And I made the change to it. I made sure that it would be the correct sequence for the release for 2024. And I re-encoded it, sent it back to them, and I said, you've got to take the soundtrack to the original video, get rid of it, take this encoded track because it's got the right ISRC on it now. Right?
Yep.
Had I not done that double check, that secondary release would have come out with the same ISRC as a previously released different song by that same artist.
Interesting.
And so that would have really screwed up the bean counters big time. And we might not have ever known it. And the only reason I checked it was the last digit was a 01. And I knew they already did a release for the year, which would have been 01, the track for this year.
Good catch.
It was kismet, man. I was back and forth with him on chat. And I thought, well, I'm going to make one last check of this because that number doesn't look right to me. And sure enough, it was the wrong number, off by one digit.
Good catch. If I could just read this last thing because it's from
Yes,
Deanbo.
go ahead.
Thank you both for allowing me a hump day evening time frame to learn much about the entire music world beyond the stage performances. I appreciate the time and effort you both take to spread the words on what we never knew before in this gig world of music. Good night, friends. Shout out to Sean. See you on Monday in Bedford because I'm going to sell something here. Michelle Ryder and Side Hustle from 6 till 10 p.m. at Stage 1 in Bedford is doing a Natal Day show. And then August 10th, we're doing Michelle's 3rd annual birthday show where we're going to have some special guests coming up. And there's a gentleman by the name of Griff Henderson that's one of the morning hosts here in Halifax. And she went on air and challenged him to come out and sing. And he's going to do it. First time, he's never sang on stage before, and he's going to do it Saturday night. And that's going to be a ton of fun.
Right. Well, this September 7th, a buddy of mine, we're celebrating, what do you call those very special birthdays?
Old man birthdays.
This year, we both officially become senior citizens. And we are doing a birthday party on July the 7th to celebrate 130 years of friendship.
Well, there you go. We all missed it.
And
You mean September 7th, don't you?
September 7th, that's right. What, did I say August 7th?
July.
Oh, July 7th. No, September 7th.
Yeah.
And Green Ink will be coming out of hiding to play at that event, and then we'll be opening it up to an open jam, and we're hoping to see a lot of musical friends. Last time there were a bunch of musical friends that showed up and performed all evening, so it was a great time to be had last time. The venue was sold out all night. And we expect no less this time. It's about almost a 400 seat venue.
Nice.
Yeah, so we expect it to be pretty much a sold out event this time as well. Should be a lot of fun. We don't charge anybody to come into the event, by the way. Sold out meaning that the bar closes to the public for the show, for us to have the party.
Fun.
Yeah, so it's a blast, man. It's a complete blast. So that happens on September 7th. We might live stream some of that stuff that night. So watch for it. All right. Well, we just finished the third period of overtime, and we got to go. We want to thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us for the Indie Show every week. It airs every week here at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I don't think they're going to change, so I think we're going to end up back on standard time. You know that, right?
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, that's been Sean from the podcast Barstools and Bandtalk. Rimshots with Sean from Halifax. Thanks for joining us tonight, brother. I am Kenny from Indie Tunes Records. You are not. This has been the Indie Show, and
Peace.
have a great week.